بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما وبعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. My respected brothers and sisters in Islam, have you heard the story of Imam Sudais? Do you know Abdul Rahman Sudais? Who is he? He's the Imam of Makkah. Very beautiful voice, mashallah, tabarakallah. Sweet voice, isn't it? Mashallah, tabarakallah. When you pray behind him, it's like a symphony, mashallah. And you're on the top floor, you're praying Taraweeh prayer, and the wind is blowing in your face, and Sudais saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And the voice is vibrating all throughout the haram, and you've got this tremendous feeling in your heart. This is Imam Sudais, mashallah, that we all love so much. And we love his voice so much. But how did Sudais become an Imam? Have you thought about it? What was it that made Sudais an Imam? How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose Sudais to be the Imam of Makkah? Well, once I asked Imam Sudais that same question, why you? Why you of all people, why? What is the reason? Of course, we had a good reason. He had a beautiful voice, mashallah. But then, you know, so many people from Saudi Arabia and elsewhere have beautiful voices and beautiful recitation. Why you and why not someone else? So he told me, let me tell you a secret. What did he say? He said, let me tell you a secret. And the secret is like this. I used to be a very, very naughty boy. He said, I used to be a very naughty boy. The terrible terror of Makkah. Very naughty. And my mom, every time I used to be naughty, she used to just get so angry. She would be so embarrassed and get so angry. And of course, every parent, when their children makes them angry, they feel like just saying something to them. Or you know, you silly boy, you this and that, etc., etc., scold them, whatever. But my mom was a righteous woman. He said my mother was a righteous woman and knew that she shouldn't make dua against me. And so every single time she used to get angry, she used to quell that anger, control it, and say, may Allah make you Imam of the Haram. May Allah make you Imam of the Haram. Naam. Every time she got angry at him, which is 100 times a day, and every time she wanted to swear at him and tell him off, which is 200 times a day, she would be making the same dua, may Allah make you Imam of the Haram. May Allah make you Imam of the Haram. And perhaps one of the times in which his mother was saying this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was accepting the dua, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua of his mother for him, and so alhamdulillah he became Imam of the Haram. Amazing story, isn't it? The terrible terror of Makkah becoming Imam of the Haram. What has come to this world? Subhanallah. But it is only because of the dua of the parents. My brothers and sisters in Islam, the role of the parents is tremendous in bringing up the next generation. The effect that a parent can have on their children, and the role that the mother and the father play in the future life of their children, and therefore in the future life of this ummah, is tremendous. It is enough for us to remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a encouragement for us to raise our children upon religion that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said in an authentic hadith, that the parents of the huffaz, the parents of those people who have memorized the Quran, will be brought out on the day of judgment. They'll be asked to come out. They will be singled out from the people on the day of judgment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put crowns of light on their heads. Crowns of light on their heads, from which even the prophets will be envious. It is enough for every father and mother. It is enough for every guardian of every child to remember this great hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this tremendous reward for what? For making sure your child goes to Quran school and making sure he comes back and then goes again and comes back and goes again until perhaps he's 8 or 9 or 10 or 12, until he has memorized the Quran. You see, the role of parents have been understood by the generations before us. By the wise men before us, they understood the effect of children, the effect of parents on their children. Have you not heard of the saying that has been coined and has been written with the water of gold? The saying that says, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. The hand that rocks the cradle truly rules the world. The effect that the parents have on their children is truly the effect that leads to the future. The effect that the children have on the future is truly the effects and the values and education that the parents have imparted on their children whilst they were still young. Today we live in a society in which the youth are in a total disarray. Total disarray. They are lost in a sea of desire. They are lost in what Abdul Rahim, may Allah have mercy on him, calls sex, drugs and rock and roll. I don't know about rock and roll, it's soul music now. I don't know about rock and roll, now it's something else, it's Metallica. I think Metallica has been some time ago, in our times, but now it's something else. Our youth are lost in a sea of desires. They have a sea of desires to choose from. They can choose from a numerous amount of distractions in this life. And they live without purpose or goal. They have no goal in their sight. They don't know what they're for, what they're here for, what they're going to do, why they're going to do it, who is going to guide them to it. They live without a sense of purpose. But who are to blame? Who can we truly blame for this? We can't really point our fingers at the children. Why? Because they're still ignorant and they don't know. The real people to blame are the parents. The real people to blame are the parents. Because the parent, having lived in England for the last 20 to 30 to 40 years, haven't even bothered to learn English. She or he, the father or the mother, leads their whole life from the morning to the night without even speaking a word of English. How do you expect the children to associate with them? How do you expect the children to associate with them? To feel that they are on the same level? It is therefore without doubt that they consider the parents to be backward. That they consider the parents to not be in tune with the affairs of this life. So our parents truly, those people who haven't bothered to upgrade their knowledge, to upgrade their situation, the understanding of the people of the place that we live in, truly are leading to, are causing their children to become wasted. Subhanallah, you know, in Australia we have a Dawah center. And that Dawah center, we have thousands and thousands of people coming to that Dawah center. Kids only. It's only a Dawah center for youth. Thousands, yes, thousands of children, of young kids coming to the Dawah center. And I'll inshallah come to that towards the end of our talk. How have we really achieved that? How have we really achieved thousands of people? If I was to give a talk, for example, we would have 2,000 kids in front of me. How have we truly achieved that? We will come to that very soon, inshallah. But the fact of the matter is, every one of them, they want to confide their true secrets with us, not with their parents. Why, oh my friend, do you want to tell your secrets to me and not to your father and mother? What is this barrier that you have set up? Or is it that your parents have set up? They can't tell the secrets to their parents. So they're lost in the playground, and they're lost to the drugs and sex and rock and roll culture. Today, inshallah, I want to touch on this topic of how to raise the next generation. First and foremost, we will talk about, inshallah, the parents, the role of the parents in how to raise the next generation, their own children. Next, inshallah, we will deal with the community, what the community should do. And thirdly, the leaders of the communities, the Maulanas and the Maulavis that are in charge of our mosques, and the people, the du'at, the callers to the religion, such as us and the other brothers and the ulama. What are their responsibilities? First and foremost, let's talk about the mother. The mother is an amazing thing. The mother is an amazing thing. You see, if you look at the biographies of some of the greatest ulama that have passed, such as, for example, Imam Malik, such as, for example, Imam Bukhari, such as, for example, Imam Ahmed, such as, for example, some of my own teachers, such as Sheikh Muhammad Mukhtar Shanqiti, Hafidahullah, and others, you will see that the parents had a pinnacle role to play in their upbringing. If you see Imam Malik rahimahullah, he mentions that the true reason for my success and for my being an imam after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was my mother. So he used to say that I used to get up in the morning. My mother used to wake me up in the morning before Fajr. She used to give me a bath and then put the thobe on me, my clothes on me, and then she used to tie the turban on my head, and then when the adhan for Fajr came, she would push me out and say, go and seek knowledge. And then when it was night time, when it was after Isha, when Imam Malik rahimahullah would come back from a whole day of studying, it was his mother who would give him a bath and then put him to bed and give him food and look after him until the next day when the mother would wake up and do all of that again. It was the dedication of the mother that saw Imam Malik become the imam that he was. So too, for example, Imam Bukhari. Amazing story. Imam Bukhari radiallahu anhu, he became blind at the age of 12. Imam Bukhari radiallahu anhu became blind at the age of 12. Subhanallah. And so his mother was so haris over him, so dedicated to his well-being, that all she used to do was make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure Imam Bukhari so that he may be a great imam. And so when Imam Bukhari radiallahu anhu was 16 years old, his mother saw a dream. His mother saw a dream. And in this dream, Ibrahim alayhi salam came to his mother and said, "O mother of Bukhari, of Muhammad bin Ismail, O mother of Muhammad bin Ismail, verily Allah has returned the sight of your son due to your dua for him and has made him a great imam." It was always, my brothers, always the parents, the mother, who has the first part to play in the life of every imam, in the life of every man who has made something in this dunya. It is always the case, without doubt. The sisters in the stands today, who have children or who will have children, you must realize the importance, the true importance that you play in the life of your future child. Why can't your child be the Imam of the Haram? Why can't your child be like Ibn Taymiyyah? Why can't your child be like Imam Bukhari? Why? Tell me or give me one reason. You have no reason. You are the mother. If you make dua to Allah, Allah will accept your dua. As Rasulullah said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the dua of their parents. You are a mother. You have the ability. You have money. You live in the West. You have the ability to teach your child. You have the ability to take them and put them to Quran schools and make them learn Arabic. You have the ability to make sure that they become guided on the right path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you that ability. Why will you not take that ability? Why will you not take that chance? It is up to you to take that chance. Our Sheikh Muhammad Mukhtar Shanqiti, he was mentioning to us the great role that his parents had upon his life. The great role that his parents had on his life, and especially his mother. He used to say that no one used to get up in the middle of the night. Whenever I used to get up in the middle of the night, no one used to get up except my mother, and she would get up and make sure that whenever I was awake, I wouldn't waste my time. No, that she brought a book to my hand. She would make sure that I had a book in my hand without wasting time. I couldn't just play around and just, joke around, etc., and waste my time playfully. He said my mother used to bring a book, Fathul Bari or whatever, to my hand. A child 10 years old. And his mother is so dedicated to his well-being. So dedicated. He said, when I couldn't read, when I was young, my mother used to come, bring the books, such as, for example, Bidayah Nihaya, of Ibn Kathir, and read it to me. Read to me the histories of the people of the past. So he mentioned that the first time he ever read Bidayah Nihaya was his mother actually reading to him when he was so young. He was so young. Yani imagine this, my brothers and sisters. Imagine this. Yani if you look at the typical Saudi women now, the women in Saudi Arabia, the typical one, I'm not talking about every Tom, Dick and Harry, but I'm talking about the typical Saudi women. Boop, comes out the child, and boop, goes the child to the maid. And so the child lives with the maid and thinks that the maid is his mother. There is no tarbiyah, there is no upbringing, there is no looking after the child, no teaching the child any values, any manners. Just send the child away, and that is all that the parents are good for, most of the Saudi women over there. This is incorrect. This is truly incorrect. You see, the minds or the brains of a child when they are young, medically they are very, very acceptable to, they can really accept a lot of knowledge. They have the ability to grasp so much knowledge, just like a sponge. You can put more and more water in it and it will hold it. Their brains are like that. If you do not teach your child whilst they're still young, whilst they're still 9 and 10 and 12, then they really won't have the ability to learn later on. This is the time to not hurry up and put them, for example, in kindergarten and say, okay, they should go to prep and kindergarten. Rather, search for the Quran prep and the Quran kindergarten. Put them in places that they will be able to take the basic education, the Islamic education that they require, and that they will retain for the rest of their lives. I still remember one of the most important things my parents did to me was that when I was young, they took me to Makkah and Medina. They took me to Makkah and Medina and they said, look at the Kaaba. My father and my mother said, look at the Kaaba. My mother said, look at the Kaaba. And look at the mosque of Rasulullah. So I looked. And my mom said, you have a tremendous responsibility. She said, you, my son, have a tremendous responsibility, and kept quiet. I still remember that. I still remember that. That has been burnt into my heart. It's in front of my eyes whenever I wake up in the mornings. I see dreams about this. I have a tremendous responsibility. Full stop. It is your responsibility, my brothers and sisters, my dearest sisters, to raise your child upon realizing this great responsibility that they must bear in the future. And we come to the father. You see, there is a very beautiful athar narration from Ali radiallahu anhu that I want to share with you today. It is so beautiful that it just makes you feel all happy all over. It's just so beautiful, just so beautiful. And it says, Ali radiallahu anhu, may Allah be happy with him, pleased with him, he said, for the first 7 years, play with them. Just play with them, they're children. Play with them, be happy with them, joke with them, etc., etc. Play with them for the first 7 years. For the next 7 years, teach them. For the next 7 years, from when they are 7 until 14, teach them. And for the next 7 years, be their friend. Perfect. Perfect. Wallahi, you can't add to that. You can't add to that, add to this wisdom. It summarizes to you your responsibilities as a parent. Summarizes to you very easily your responsibilities as a parent. So when they're born until the time they are 7, play with them. Don't scold them, don't hit them, don't hurt them. But rather, this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. This is a friend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you. So you spend this time, the first 7 years, playing with them and being happy and joyful and enjoying this time. And then for the next 7 years, it's time to get to the books. It's time to teach them about this dunya. It's time to teach them about the akhirah. So you worry about their education. So you make sure, for example, that they're getting the Islamic education and their Western education that you wish for them to gain. And you make sure that they're mixing with the right people, they're mixing with the right friends, and they're getting what they require, staying away from the evils of the society. And then, when they're 14, they have desires in their hearts. They are human beings like you and me. I knew I needed to get married when I was young. I needed to get married when I was 14, 15, but no one cared at that point. But subhanallah, when it's 14, it's time for the parents to realize that they should be friends with their children. Because if I'm not going to find a friend in my father and mother, who will I find a friend in? Shall I find a friend in the local drug dealer? Shall I find a friend in the local pimp? With whom shall I find a friend, a needy friend that I can open up to? It has to be the father and mother. It has to be the father and mother. So they have to truly understand, these barriers of now, subhanallah, aren't you ashamed you're thinking about girls? As many parents say to their child, and the child, for example, the brothers are ashamed to tell their parents, that they need to get married, for example. It is one of the most, the single biggest problem that we have, that the brothers will come and tell us, for example, us young callers to the religion, they will come and tell us, oh brother so and so, I need to get married, but my parents are not listening. Oh brother so and so, I need to get married, I'm in medicine, I'm doing gynecology, and it's just blowing my mind, and I have to get married right now. Subhanallah, we come across this every time, every day. In fact, I would think there's some questions over here. Brother, we need to get married, etc., etc. Can you organize something? I said, we're more worried about ourselves to worry about you at this time. Right? The situation is, brothers, that most people don't think about their children. They don't remember, they don't realize the pressures that a young child is going through. A young person going through the pressures of this life, he has peer pressure, he has the sexual drive in his body that is now starting to burn and rage. It needs to be curbed. Wallahi, every time your child is under your protection, every time your child looks at another girl or your girl looks at another boy with passion, the second gaze and the third gaze, it is a sin upon you too. It is a sin upon you too. Why? Because there is a qaida in Islam. There is a ruling in Islam, and that is a very, it's a tongue twister in Arabic. It says, يُكَلَّفَ الْمُكَلَّفُ لِغَيْرِ مُكَلَّفٍ لِتَكْلِيفٍ شَرْعِي. Okay? I'll say it again. Can you try and say it after me? يُكَلَّفَ الْمُكَلَّفُ لِغَيْرِ مُكَلَّفٍ لِتَكْلِيفٍ شَرْعِي. Amazing. Let me give an example to understand this principle. Let's say, for example, there's a brother who can't make wudu, his hands are broken, he doesn't have hands, for example, 2 hands, and it's time for salah. Now, what's this guy going to do? He's going to make tayammum, right? Or is he going to make wudu? What's the answer? The answer is he has to make wudu because water is available. So when water is available, he can't do tayammum. But we have a problem here. What's the problem, guys? The problem is he doesn't have hands. He doesn't have hands. So if a person doesn't have hands, he's not obliged in Islam, is he? He can't. He can't take the water and put it on his face and rub his feet, right? He can't. However, at this point, we are obliged by Islam to take the water in our hands and rub his face with it, rub his whatever is remaining from his hands with it, rub his feet, etc., etc., etc. We are obliged. In the same way as, for example, it's time for Fajr and we all wake up. However, our brother might still be sleeping. So it's obligatory on us to wake him up, even though he's sleeping, right? The pen has been lifted from him. He's not obliged. But we are obliged by Allah to wake him up. In the same way, the same principle, going back to our topic today, the parents are obliged by Islam because they are in authority over this. They are in power over their children. They are obliged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make every means and every way to make sure that their children don't fall into haram. They are obliged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must make sure, my dearest brother and sister, that your children don't fall into haram. And it's not an easy excuse telling a 14, 15-year-old start fasting. It's not a solution to the problem. Rather, the solution to the problem would be to make sure and to do whatever you can, whatever best you can, so that they can find a halal means to curb their desires. This is just one of the things, one of the problems that are plaguing the next generation that we wish to raise. And thereafter, after they've grown up and you've taught them until they're 14, be their friends, don't be their enemies. And this is an important point especially for our sisters. Why? Because every sister-in-law, every daughter-in-law is wary of her mother-in-law. You see, there is a general rule that says you can't put 2 women under the same roof. You can't put 2 women under the same roof. It's not a qaida in fiqh, guys. You won't find it in Mughni or in Majmu' Fatawa or Nawawi or etc., etc. You won't find it there. But I think it should have been added there. It says you can't put 2 women under the same roof. This is why a daughter-in-law can't live with her mother-in-law. But you shouldn't, my respected mother-in-law, you shouldn't be the enemy of your daughter-in-law. Just like you should be the friend of your son, you should be friends to your son, so too must you be for this woman who has left her family, has left the people that she knows and come to a strange family. You must be friends with her, not cause problems, not cause difficulties. Understand, realize this point and not give her difficulty in her life. Unfortunately, most of the time, when young couples get married, this is a problem which they always face. My mother-in-law is saying this, and my wife just can't take it. My mother-in-law, she just prefers the other one, or she just wants to sit and make me cook, or every daughter-in-law, her argument is, my mother-in-law makes me a slave. She makes me cook all the time, clean everything, do all the dishes, do all the washing. It's a common problem, isn't it? And wallahi, there is sometimes a problem in our mother-in-laws. There is. I have to admit that. And that is because they forget that they are meant to be friends with us and not be our enemies. We come to the role of the community in the next generation. One of the most amazing things was that when I was coming from London to Bradford about a couple of days ago, and I had one of the brothers who was really involved in the Dawah, he told me something very amazing. He told me in 1966, England UK in general had 200 mosques. Had 50 mosques in 1966. England in general had 50 mosques. I don't know how true these statistics are, but in general, that sounds about right. 1966, the Muslim community had how many mosques, guys? 50 mosques. And then he goes, in 1996, in 30 years, the Muslims had more than 1,200 mosques. More than 1,200 mosques. Meaning in 30 years, there is so much that this Muslim community has invested into their religious institutions, isn't it? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. That is exciting news. That is truly exciting news. However, the problem is, guys, whenever I entered into any mosque here, I always found a big signboard saying, we need £500,000 because we're going to extend this mosque. Every single mosque that I've gone to, even if it be a huge mosque, still they have a sign, hey, we need your money. Yani, what is this showing to us? What it is really showing to us is that for the next 30 years, we'll be busy upgrading our mosques. And we're going to forget the true needs of a community now. What are the true needs of the community? We have a new generation of youth coming up. Our generation, we studied in non-Muslim schools. We studied in institutions that don't worry about the Islamic tarbiyah, about teaching the khutbat al-hajah, about teaching them Arabic, about teaching the Surah Fatiha, etc., the Quran, etc., and Islamic manners. We had to learn this afterwards. I learned it when I went to Medina, for example. I didn't learn it when I was young, because I went to a grammar school in Australia. So, the real problem with the community now is that they are still in that old generation. They are still in that understanding that our main purpose and goal at this time is really building mosques. Whereas our true purpose and goal in a community as a whole has to be building schools, building Dawah centers, building youth centers, rehabilitation places for our youth. This is the true goal for our society. It's not time for us now to think about building a mosque. Okay, if you don't have a mosque at all, then build a mosque, no problem. That is where we start off our base. That's our base for everything. However, when you do have one, then why build another one? What about our children? I am the father of a couple of children now. I am worried now, where am I going to send my child? I want my child to become the next Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. How will I do that? When I don't even have a hafiz next to me, or living in my society, etc., living in my neighborhood, how am I going to make sure that he is going to be getting the education he requires? Or he'll be going to the normal schools, normal kindergartens, the normal schools in Australia, and he'll be learning, the same Anglican methodology that is being taught everywhere. This is a problem. Truly is a problem. And if you think about it, the dynamics of the Dawah in England is that Dawah requires funding. In Australia, you see, we can rent something like this a whole month, for example, for only £1,000. Something as big as this. Our Dawah center would be probably as big as this. And we have, courts, we have places for, we have a gym, we have a special gym, probably, 1/4 of this size. A huge gym for people. Then we have table tennis centers, and we have places, kickboxing places, and rings and all that, etc., Yani, the dynamics of the Dawah here in England are not the same. You can't rent something like this for £1,000 a month. You can't. It's impossible. £1,000 a day perhaps is probably what we're looking at. Even that is too cheap. Even that is too cheap. So you can't do that. You must have projects that support itself. And schools are a viable project. Schools are a viable project because you can charge money for putting your children in. So really, my brothers and sisters, for the future, if you want to look after your generations, our goal and intention has to move on from wanting to set up mosques to really wanting to set up institutions, Dawah centers, youth centers, schools for our children. And we come to the issue of our du'at, our callers to Islam. You see, our callers to Islam, our Maulanas and Maulavis, and I'll talk about them mostly, they have to realize something. And that something is that when they go into a mosque, all the rows are filled with old people. With all due respect to our elders, we love them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they will not be here with us another 10, 20, 30 years. Then who will fill up the mosques? Who will fill up the mosques? I once went to a mosque in Manchester. I don't remember, I think Auburn or somewhere. Auburn, I don't know. Anyway, there was a mosque that I went to, and they heard there was a brother from Medina coming. And so I went into the mosque, and you know what talk I had prepared? The talk I had prepared was being steadfast upon the religion. Being steadfast upon the religion. Went into the mosque, sat down, and all I see in front of me is old people. SubhanAllah, being steadfast upon the religion. How am I going to talk to all people being steadfast upon the religion? SubhanAllah, even if the bomb falls tomorrow in the middle of Manchester, these people are not going to leave Islam. I didn't come all the way to speak to a group of old people. They will come to the mosque day and night for every 5 daily prayers, whether anything happens in the future or not. Our goal, our dawah should not be centered towards the old. Our goal and our dawah really has to be centered towards the young. Really has to be centered towards the young. We have children on our streets. We have people. We have, for example, one of the greatest. I think there is a documentary that is going to be aired on BBC about the Muslim pimps in Bradford. The Muslim pimps in Bradford. Imagine that. Muslim pimps in Bradford. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Our brothers and our sisters are falling into so much haram. Rather, our goal and our purpose truly has to be for the dawah, for the youth. I'll give you an example of what we used to do in Australia. In Australia, when we were into the religion, it was about 8 years ago when I was coming back into the religion. In Australia, this wasn't that long ago, subhanAllah. About 8 years ago, when we were into the religion, we said, subhanAllah, we have to do something. We used to hire out a minibus. And on Friday nights, us big brothers, all get into the bus. We would drive our buses to the pubs and to the discos and would stand on the road. And if there was any brother who looked like a Muslim, you get in. That's it. You get in. Now, I want to see you now. And of course we do it in a nice way, right? But not in that manner. In a nice way, because we know how to talk the street language in Australia. So we would tell him to get into the van. We would take him. We wouldn't kill him or beat him up. We would take him to a dawah center. We'd have a pool. We'd play pool and we'd play some ping pong and we'd do some kickboxing, because mashallah a lot of our brothers are kickboxers, champions and Victorian champions and this and that. And so we'd do that, and after that we'd have a pizza. We'd have a meal of pizza, because that's the brother food at the moment, isn't it? Youth food is pizza. That's the cheapest thing and it's nice and tasty. Pizza and Coke, and just a 5 or 10 minute talk about why we're here and what our goal and our purpose is. And thereafter they would go home. Right? In this way, subhanAllah, we in about 2 to 3 years were able to get thousands of youth come to us. Now they don't need to spend their energy, because youth have energy. They have energy. They are so energetic. They have to have a channel for them to spend this energy. If they don't spend their energy in a halal way, they will spend it in a haram way. That's why they have to go to discos, right? Because they have to dance. They have to get the energy out of their bodies and the stress and pressure out of their bodies. So that's why what we have is, for example, places where they can kick and punch. Get the energy out. Yeah, there you go. Just kick yourself and just kick that punching bag, etc. Just get that energy out of your body, and thereafter have some food and listen to a little bit of Islam. And subhanAllah, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years, and we have a new generation of young youth who now are having children, and they all want to send their children to Muslim schools. And if we don't have this approach, then we are not going to be successful. For the last 4 or 5 years that I've been coming to England, every year I come to England, And only some places I found where there is a proper improvement. Some places where I can actually say, I would love to go there again. Some places like, for example, Huddersfield I've been to. Some places like, for example, Bradford, for example. Right? But some other places, wallahi, I don't want to go there again. Why? Because I don't see improvement. I keep telling the brothers, saying, brothers, come on. What we need to do is our dawah has to be geared towards the youth. Our dawah has to be geared towards the youth. We have to be road sheikhs, you know. We have to be sheikhs in the move, on the road. What is so shameful for me to go in my thobe and go to the pub and go to the disco and say, brother, come out. SubhanAllah, there were times when we used to go into the discos and physically pull the brother out. Yeah, because in Australia, you see, you know, the people who don't go to discos, the brothers have a particular sound they make, okay, when they're really enjoying. So we know this is Lebanese. You know, we grab him and we pull him out. Yeah, in a nice way, inshallah. Nice way that wouldn't cause any physical harm. Okay, right. It says time up. Right. The last thing, inshallah, my brothers and sisters in Islam, is that we must realize that we are here for a long time. As we were mentioning yesterday, 60 million Muslims, it is not practical for us to pack up our bags and move right now. Where will we go? Which country will give us space? And we can't even live there. If we did that, half of the Muslim population will become non-Muslim. They will say, no, we don't want this. So we practically can't tell a person, practically speaking, not theoretically, practically speaking, we can't tell anyone to truly just pack up their bags and leave. Rather, what we can do is tell them to be British Muslims. Now I understand this word, perhaps British Muslims have a wrong connotation. And some people might say, hey, you know that, Islam and British, and one is a term which is nationalistic, and the other one is a Islamic term. One of them is based upon, for example, non-Islamic values. The other one is based upon Islamic values. But at the end of the day, this is the reality. Whether you wish to use this term or not, you are that. You are that. So therefore, my brothers and sisters in Islam, realistically speaking, you need to raise your children to fulfill this term. They have to be British, at the same time they have to be Muslim as well. Muslim first, British next. So therefore they can't you can't really bring them up thinking that they're going to be moving country, going back to Pakistan, going back to Bangladesh, going back to Egypt, Yemen, etc., etc. Realistically thinking, you can't do that. Practically speaking, you can't do that. How can you do that? It is quite difficult. It is very difficult to do that. And so your dawah, your tarbiyah, your upbringing has to be in accordance with this framework of the fact that they are living in England, and first and foremost they are Muslim before anything else. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. This question says, why do you say British Muslim, instance say Muslims from Britain? SubhanAllah, there is another qa'idah I want to talk about today. And the qa'idah says, La mushahata fil istilah. La mushahata fil istilah means there is no problem with terminology. You can call it what you like. You can say Muslims from England if you want. If you can say British Muslims, it has the same meaning. So there is no real difference between us. We can use different terms. It has the same meaning. The reality is you are Muslim people living in England. The question says, you say Hijrah is impractical today. However, is it still not considered to be a noble act even today? And the other one says, should we not encourage some people of the Ummah to do such noble actions for the sake of the religion and children? Okay, yes, the issue of Hijrah is an important topic. There is a theoretical aspect to it and a practical aspect to it. The theoretical aspect is, of course, that it is better, and it is obligatory for us to do Hijrah. Hijrah has a very comprehensive meaning. It requires an hour on its own. Hijrah is to leave the haram and go to the halal, is to leave the ma'asiyah of Allah, the sinning or the disobedience of Allah, and go to that which is in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anything in which you leave the disobedience to Allah and go to the obedience to Allah, that is indeed Hijrah. So leaving a non-Muslim country and going to a Muslim country is definitely liked. However, at the end of the day, when you go from England to a Muslim country like Saudi Arabia, they still treat you like a foreigner. I have lived in Medina for 6 years. I know the people, I know every corner and creek in Medina, I know every bump on the road. I know it very well because I have been there so well. I know most of the, a lot of the people in Medina. I speak their slang. I understand their manners, their ways, the ways they act. I know the restaurants over there. I know the places to pray, etc., etc. I know Medina very well. It is as if I am from Medina. I should say Abu Yusuf, Taufeeq, Chaudhry al-Madani. But the people would not allow it. And so when I left from Medina and it was time for me to come back, wallahi, you should have seen the way they made sure that I was going to leave. I don't even want to talk about this at this point because it just hurts too much. They don't treat you, my brothers and sisters, respected brothers and sisters, wallahi, they don't, we Muslims are living in a time of jahiliyyah. A lot of our people are still in jahiliyyah. They are still in ignorance. You are living in a bed of roses. You think the world is a bed of roses. It's not. Try it out. Why don't you go and try it out? It's not a bed of roses over there. It is quite difficult. It is for this reason. Sometimes, we hear people say the best place for Muslims to live now is in England. SubhanAllah, I can give talks like this. I can talk in the manner I was talking. I can't say that in Saudi. I can't even say that in Saudi. After the bombings in Riyadh, me as a person with lihya, with a beard, we felt strange in Medina. For the first time, actually felt as if I was strange in Medina. Why? Because every person in a checkpoint, in a Saudi checkpoint, in a checkpoint on the road, they were letting everybody without a beard go through, except for people with a beard. This is strange. They would make us get out and check our boot, etc., etc. Just to give you an idea, saying that the times have changed, guys. The times have really changed. Nothing, just don't think that the grass is greener on the other side. It's not. It's not greener. It is a difficult life. Practically speaking, you really cannot think about moving until you have a proper way of moving, until you have a proper system, you have a proper means to do so. If you have, of course, go ahead. By all, by all things, go ahead. It's recommended for you. Go ahead. But is it wajib on you? It's not wajib because of the great difficulties that we practically have found. We practically have found tremendous difficulties. I was stuck in the airport in Egypt. I came to Egypt because I wanted to spend some money, some British pounds, so I could improve the economy, right? And they wouldn't let me through the airport because they were afraid who I was. Imagine the amount of difficulties. The brother was telling me, brother, you shouldn't be wearing a thobe in Egypt. I said, why? Why? What not? What's the problem? Because probably everyone is taking pictures of you and they're going to submit it to the secret police. And it's unbelievable. How can you live comfortably? And I can, subhanAllah, I can walk into Tesco's now and not have a care in the world because people are so used to seeing people like this and they don't really care. They go on with their life. They don't give you looks and this and that. In a Muslim country, you get looks, trying to live up to your religion. So those people, for example, who are basing their life on this, be wary of this problem. If you have a chance to go to a good place, alhamdulillah, by all means take it. And it's made easy for you. By all means take it. However, know this, that it is going to be a difficult time. It's going to be a difficult time. And of course it is a noble action, it is a recommended action. However, it is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult.